Well, welcome to another episode of Out of the Blank podcast. I'm here with Glenn.
Hey, how's it going?
Glenn, on behalf of me and all of my listeners, I'd like to apologize for how they killed you off in The Walking Dead. That was the most savage shit I had ever seen in my entire life.
Oh, bro, did I have it coming? No, I got murdered, right?
Yeah,
It's been like 2 years
that
since I watched that.
I was about to say that was the most disgusting thing I've ever seen in any TV show. His eye was like full on popped out of his head. Negan took it bat to his head. I had to rewind it like 10 times, and I was about to
Oh,
puke.
right, yeah, he crushed my head with a bat or something, right?
Yeah, I mean, it had chains on it, or barbed wire, so I guess it's like upgraded version of a baseball bat.
Baseball bat 2.0.
Well, before we start going into the storytelling, you tell me what led to that inevitable death. What do you do, Glenn?
Well, I'm sort of in between careers right now. I've spent the last 6 years being a real estate broker, but I recently, just this past May, graduated. I have a bachelor's in applied mathematics, and I'm trying to transform into
Transition?
yeah
Transition.
transition thanks into being like a software engineer.
Okay, I have a really big question for you that you might be able to answer because of the real estate factor.
Sure.
Is it technically watching somebody inside of their house if their whole house is made of glass?
Hmm.
Like, that's not stalking, is it?
No, I don't think so. I feel like the glass is really an invitation at that point.
That's what I'm saying. Like, you got to be like, I don't care what people think. I'm just going to walk around naked. Like, you're obviously, you want people to watch you if you have a house full of glass.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, it's glass. They know it's glass. Yeah, if you're choosing to walk around naked, then you've made that bed.
You've made that bed and now you have to lay in it. And somebody's going to watch you through the freaking window laying in that bed.
That's a little spooky.
I
I don't
try.
know. Does the glass house have curtains?
Okay. Now that's a big debate because I don't think there's enough curtains. Like, I've seen houses where like the whole wall is like glass, and I'm like, we live next to a golf course. You are basically screwed if somebody decides to whack at it because their wife left them or something. And next thing you know, that ball goes like 50 feet farther and hits right through your window. Or it could be like you got the Elon Musk money where you can like hit a remote and then these shades or blinds just start going all the way across the whole entire thing.
Yeah. Well, let me hit you with some window facts here. Uh, Most of the time in houses that are 2 stories, the upper windows, if they're like pretty low to the ground, have to be made out of tempered glass, so it's harder for children an accident. So I would bet that on a golf course, any course facing windows would have to be tempered glass, right? The same kind of glass that would be like a car window, where if you hit it, it's not going to shatter.
Are you telling
It's
me
like
Bird Box is bullshit where the lady runs out the window?
well, I don't know. Sometimes on older houses, um, they're not tempered.
It's like if you go to Vegas, there you realize that there's like barely any hotels with windows that open up because people that would just gamble and lose their money, they would jump out. So it was
Oh
like,
yeah,
oh my.
that's a man. What a morbid thought.
You really got to look at the world and analyze it because I feel like there's some stuff that's like pretty like, oh, we're just accepting this as like truth. And this is all like some pretty sketchy, dark stuff.
Yeah, what really blows my mind is that for basically everything you just pass by on the street or take for granted, there's somebody who's really put a lot of thought into all the ways that that thing could be used or go wrong, like the hotel windows, right? The average person, I'm sure, doesn't think about jumping out of that window, but to be the building designer and say, yeah, people are going to off themselves like this, or, even, I don't know, something more trivial like making, if your cell phone gets too hot, you could burn yourself, but people don't think about that, right? But there's somebody whose job it is to make sure that, that battery doesn't get too hot and explode or burn you.
It's all learning by trial and error. I guarantee you when the casinos first opened up, they were not thinking about keeping closed windows. And then after a few times, like, we definitely should put a lock on that at least. Like at my hotel that I used to work at, Actually, my first 6 months there, I almost fell out of an 11th story window. The
Oh wow.
reason why is it's a classic old hotel. So you have to actually unlock the window, and then you have to take the pane glass out, and then you have to, scrub it, and then you put it back up there after it's dry. Well, the top doesn't, it just falls down. So to get out there, I was like, all right, I'm just gonna. My arms aren't long enough. I'm a short guy, so I just stuck my hand out there to get the window. So I stood on the ledge, and then the window fell down and went in, like out, like it broke, and it hit me right in the knees, and I almost went face first, 11 stories. And a dude was behind me, was just like, "You almost just fucking died." I was like, "I know." He's like, "Are you gonna clean the rest of the windows?" I'm like, "Hell no."
Did he catch you or anything or?
No, he was like, you could see him like paused in the hallway, like he was about to start running and jumping towards me. But I caught myself where I was like, oh shit, like, they're like small windows, kind of like this Zoom box. So if I really got closer to the camera, my shoulders wouldn't be able to get out of the frame. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So related question to that.
I'm not a ghost.
Well, I am, right? Because I've already died, so it's okay.
What do
This
you
could
mean?
be a ghost cast.
Oh, that's right. You died in The Walking Dead. I totally forgot. That's what I'm saying. With this podcast, I'm all over. I forget what I said 2 minutes ago.
Oh, it's okay. Um, have you had any other near-death experiences, or have you ever reflected on how close we all are to death at any given time?
Honestly, yes, I gave myself a panic attack last week because I started really thinking about the blood that was going through my heart. And then I really narrowed it down to a point where I was like, imagine the blood rushing through the right ventricle, and the right ventricle's like an air pump. It's just going, imagine if that just exploded. And then I had to lay by my car for a little while because I was just like, oh God, I want to go back.
Yeah. How old are you, Robbie?
I'm 22, sir.
Okay, so you're a little bit younger than I am.
I bet
When
I've
I
had more
was,
near-death experiences than you, though.
I don't know. Well, I've been, I have a very strong sense of self-preservation, so probably.
Well, you've never had – you just asked me if I had a near-death experience, and now you're telling me you've never had a near-death experience?
Well, the thing that made me think about that question was I had a dream the other night. Um, and every once in a while I'll have these dreams. And so in this one, I was like back in school or in grad school or something.
God, I've had those.
And I was about to go home and I was driving on the highway. And, if you've ever been around a big city like Chicago, they have there's roads that, they merge down onto other roads and so at any given time you could be like 50 or 100 feet in the air driving.
Yeah.
And in my dream, I somehow missed that one of those was closed, and I like went, you know,
Fucking Final Destination off the thing, or like
yeah, dude, I
Roadrunner.
hot wheeled off of it. And that I woke up in a real panic, and part of me was like, what if I actually died, and I'm just when you die, you wake up into a new reality, and then this is like a
That's
totally
what
different life I've never lived.
this goes down. A thing that really screwed me up one time was the fact I was like, what happens if I died in my dream, or if I died and then this is just my brain like in a coma or something? Or maybe I did die, but I got in a car accident, I'm in a coma, and this is all just like my brain creating this false reality. Because I heard a drug story, Steve Cantwell usually mentioned. He took salvia and then went in this drug trip. He was only gone 45 seconds in reality, but was gone 8 years in a drug trip, living this whole other life in Austin, Texas, or Tyler, Texas. And I'm like I'm hearing the story of myself. I'm like, that's what, like the scene from My Name is Earl, where he gets hit by the car and he's in the coma and his whole life's like a TV show. I'm like, is that what my life is right now? Because this is the worst run fucking coma dream I have ever been in my entire life. Shit's all falling off everywhere. I'm like, what was the production value on this shit?
Yeah, all the writers quit mid-season, and
You've never really had a near-death experience? That's like shocking to me because I've had like 3.
um, the closest probably was last year. I got a really bad infection in my finger, and I didn't at first I didn't know it was infected. I thought I just like, have you ever cut your nail really short and then your finger kind of hurts because you keep bumping the soft part underneath on stuff?
Yeah, and you keep touching it, so it causes even more
Yeah,
pain, but it feels good at the same time.
yeah. So so it was like that. And then after a few days of it hurting, one day I started feeling really sick, and I noticed that like I had gotten up for my computer, and my hips really hurt, and like, I touched like my groin and my lymph nodes, they were really swollen, and I'm like, well, I've got uh obviously I have some kind of infection. And I didn't connect it to my finger, so I went to the doctor, and they thought maybe I had like a urinary tract infection or something.
In your
And then
finger?
well, no, I thought my finger was like something separate, and I
Oh,
was
I thought
going
we
to
were
the
like
doctor.
entering the movie. What is it? Scary Movie 3, where they start peeing out of their fingers. I was like, oh shit, I never even thought of that one.
No, so actually, even by the time I got to the doctor, I was feeling better. Although my finger was still hurting. So they were like, oh, whatever. He probably just maybe had the flu or something. And then the next day, I'm in the shower and I look down, and my arm, um, I don't know if you've ever seen a picture of like a blood infection or something where it's in your veins and they turn black and it'll like go up your
Yeah,
arm. And then if it gets to your heart,
it's called
maybe.
the devil possessing you.
Yeah, so I had something sort of like that, except it was a really bright red streak all the way from my finger up to like my forearm. And I was like, oh, that doesn't seem like it's good. So I asked my girlfriend, I was like, hey, should I be worried about this? And she's like, I think you need to go to the hospital. Um, and so I called my mom because she's a nurse. And I was like, hey, mom, what do you think about this? And she's like, go to the hospital right now. And anyway, I managed to get into my doctor's office. And by the time, and that was like 2 hours later. And it had like traveled from the middle of my forearm, like halfway up my bicep by that point. And it was just a shot of antibiotics to fix it, but it was like a really severe infection, and it actually kind of messed me up for the past like year because um the lymph nodes in my groin being so swollen, like I don't know, it made
You could Google
me
that on WebMD and it would tell you you have testicular cancer. You know that? You're so
yeah.
freaking lucky your mom's a nurse where you can just pull that out. I was like, I'm going to call my mom. She's a nurse. She'll know what to do, or she'll do this, or she'll give me better advice. Me, I just like Google a symptom or something, and it's like, you have stomach cancer. I'm like, all I did was eat 2 boxes of Raisin Bran in one sitting. There's no freaking way. But then, like, 10 minutes later, you're in so much pain where it feels like you just swallowed mud. And you're like, oh, it's right. It's whoever this genius is on the computer that typed this article into WebMD is 100% true.
Yeah, life is really absurd, isn't it? You could just die from cutting your fingernail too short.
What would be the worst way to die, though?
Hmm.
Everyone says catching on fire, but I've talked to people that have been severely burned, and they talk about that the pain is so bad it actually turns good. So it's like a crossover, like the scene in The Gray where the guy's dying. He's like, it's going to be like a warm blanket coming over you, and you will feel good, and you feel warmth.
Hmm.
And I'm like, I feel like the worst way to go, it's not drowning. I've almost done that. It's not that bad. Um, Maybe jumping off a building.
Yeah, I've heard jumping off a building or people who jump off like the Golden Gate Bridge have an instant moment of clarity as they tumble toward their death, or they're like,
Well,
"Oh, I made a mistake doing this."
I
Um,
wonder if this is true, but I was always like, what happens if somebody jumped off this bridge, like the Bay Bridge, and then like my dad would be like, oh, you would explode into like a million pieces. And I'm like, is that true? Or are you just saying that so I don't do it? But now I'm curious.
hmm. Well, they say when you hit the water from a really high spot, it's like hitting concrete because of the surface tension. So maybe, I mean, I don't think you would explode like a bomb, but you would definitely splat like
I think the
a
worst thing in
fly.
the world, like I've heard, like, all right, so this is actually you tossed out a window fact. I'm gonna toss out a cop fact for you. So you know
All
how
right.
they determine murder versus suicide if somebody jumps off a building?
No.
Depending how the body falls. Because if you ever try and jump off something extremely high head first, it's impossible because your body naturally turns you like a cat lands on their feet. It's because
Interesting.
it's trying to immediately instinctually save itself. So whenever you see somebody like that, oh, they hit head first or something, a cop immediately knows that's murder. Because in the mafioso days, they would take people and just chuck them off fucking buildings.
Wow.
School
See,
doesn't
that's what I'm
teach you
talking
that.
about. There's like so much hidden meaning behind everything that happens, and knowing that like landing one way versus another way means something totally different.
Yeah, and then you start to wonder why there's all these just chalk outlines everywhere. Like whoever this artist is just sucks. Like, oh my, like why does he keep who is this guy? Why does he keep putting up these body marks everywhere? It's like those are people that have died. It's like, oh, imagine if we just left those there. Like every time someone dies in that spot, they instead of pulling up the tape, they have to leave that there. You would walk into New York City like, holy shit, I live in hell. I literally live in hell.
How many people do you think have like ever jumped off a building though? It can't be
Not just
that
buildings. I'm
many,
talking
right?
about getting shot, getting stabbed, getting hit
Oh,
by
yeah,
a
okay. Well,
car.
that does raise the body count quite a bit, doesn't it?
Okay, would getting hit by a car be the worst thing? I feel like that's pretty bad if you're just walking as like a pedestrian. Because I always look at like car accidents that happen and people fly over the roof of the car. I'm like, that's a Honda Civic, dude. That's taking out your fucking shins. There's no way you're flying over the car. That thing is running you over like a speed bump.
Yeah. And modern cars I've heard have like there's a way that if a pedestrian gets hit, you land on the hood, and there's like little airbags in it that will pop the hood up to make it soften your landing.
Or fucking trampoline them up in the air.
Yeah. I think the worst way would be a way that you were in like a prolonged state of knowing that you were dying, but not being able to do anything about it. So maybe like
Oh shit, Lou Gehrig's disease.
yes, yeah, something like that, or um, even like getting a limb cut off or something, right?
Well, Lou Gehrig's disease is like, I think this is what it is. It's where your body basically you lose all functionality of your body, like being able to move your hands, but it's at such a slow rate. So one day you would just wake up and then you wouldn't be able to move your feet, and you wouldn't be able to move
Yeah,
your legs, and then you wouldn't be able to move your hands, and then you're just locking yourself down inside your body until all you can think, like you're just like a vegetable, but you can still pay attention. Everything's moving around you.
I think you're right. I think that would be the worst. I've heard a lot of people say like having Alzheimer's is a really bad way
You
to
fucking
die.
forget 5 minutes later, dude. My grandma had Alzheimer's. She's happy as a clam.
Yeah, so that's what I said too. It's only bad for the people who have to take care of you. For
Then you're
you're.
just a chore.
Mm-hmm. What
um,
other near death experiences have you had?
I was hit by a jet ski. That was probably my most recent one. And then I had carbon monoxide poisoning, which was pretty scary. It makes me always check my house. I feel
Oh
like
yeah, that's
I got something from that. And also, it's the reason why I hate Sleeping Beauty.
well. Expand on that. Why? What does Sleeping Beauty have to do with carbon monoxide poisoning?
So when I was probably about 3 or 4 years old, small little kid, I think just the age where you're just in kindergarten, I stayed home because I wasn't feeling too well, and everybody in our house wasn't feeling well. This is the age before they had the detectors for that. We still had the gas stoves and all that, and not everything was electric like it usually is now. Um, and I remember I was just like laying on the couch, and I was super sick. But the weird part about why nobody else kind of got as bad as I did was because I was so little I couldn't leave the house to go hang out with friends. My brother, who's 4 years older, would leave the house and go hang out with his friends, so then he'd be out in the fresh air and feel better. Well, I just stayed inside the house, keep getting worse and worse and worse. Everybody else was going into work and stuff. And,
Oh
you know,
man.
so then eventually I just like fell face first onto the couch and threw up and then rolled off of it. And then like, I was like, wouldn't call it a seizure, but I was kind of like shaking on the ground. And my mom's like, holy shit, what do I do? Pulled me out, take me out to the car. Ambulance comes, fireman picks me up. And next thing I know, I'm getting drove to the hospital, and they start doing what they have to do in a exposure like that. And they start taking out blood. I'm getting needles shoved in my arm. I'm like blacking in and out. Next thing I know, I'm getting tubes stuck up my nose. And they pulled out the movie Sleeping Beauty when I was like, everything was done and when I just needed to recuperate. And they put out Sleeping Beauty and they played it 8 fucking times. And about the fifth time in, I had the tubes up my nose still. I had to eat something. So they gave me a peanut butter sandwich. No jelly. So a dry ass peanut butter sandwich on some Wonder Bread with tubes up my nose while watching Sleeping Beauty. So every time I see that movie now, I get fucking anxiety. I'm like, I'm craving a PB, but I don't want the jelly. And I also hate this movie.
Yeah, that's understandable. That's a extraordinarily traumatic experience. Although I will say I'm a peanut butter no jelly kind of guy.
It's honestly better sometimes. It depends on the jelly. I think too many people think on the lines of grape. But like I'm always the type of guy. How do you make your peanut butter? How do you make your sandwich?
I usually a peanut butter sandwich. I like the Skippy creamy peanut butter.
Okay.
Um, I've really been eating a lot of like potato bread lately, as opposed to like wheat or white bread. Um,
Gluten.
yeah, I get like really stuffy if I eat too much like gluten stuff. It doesn't really hurt my stomach, but um,
You just feel like shit. It's like eating pasta.
yeah. So I'll do that. The thing I don't like about jelly, ever since I was a kid, I didn't really like the texture of it, and it was too sweet, and I felt like it was a very overpowering taste. Even though I liked fruit.
I'm literally
Um,
probably of the small portion of the population of white people that do not like mayo. It's the consistency. It's too much like cum to me. I don't know what it is. I look at it, I'm like, that's disgusting. You're throwing that on your sandwich.
how do you feel about cilantro?
Mm. An amazing singer, but not, I don't know. Isn't that like a spice? I'm trying to think what cilantro is. Or is that meat?
No, cilantro is it's a an herb. It's like a
Oh, it's great
leaf
on
with a long
pizza.
stem.
It's great on pizza.
Yeah, my girlfriend loves it. But it always I feel like the taste of it, unless it's only a very small amount, is extremely overpowering.
Yeah.
And there's a certain percentage of people that say it tastes like soap. So I don't know if I'm one of those people, but definitely is like it's too strong for me.
Where do you stand on oregano?
I like oregano.
I remember I got a bag of weed given to me, and they said it was good weed, but it had a lot of seeds in it. It was fucking oregano. They called it they called it fire, or they called it fireball or something, and you would smoke it, and he was like, it just gives you a sore throat when you get high. And I was like, okay. And I was like 14 years old, and I smoked it. I'm like, started smelling it, and I'm like, yo, I got this shit in my fucking cabinet. Like, what is this? And I looked, and it was oregano. And it was a friend that did it to me too. I was like, wow. He goes, you smoked it? I'm like, yeah. He goes, did it get you messed up? I was like, no, it's fucking stuff you put on dominoes. That's immediately what my brain thinks every time now. I'm like, I remember that.
I remember when I was in like high school, or maybe it was just after high school, there was like a small trend for a little while of people buying like incense from the gas station and then hitting it in a little pipe like you would marijuana. Um,
Fucking hate incense so much.
and I'm like, I'm
Uh,
pretty sure that's not doing what you think it's doing. And they're like, nah, bro, this fucks you up.
there's two things of incense that I can't stand. I just don't like incense, and I hate sage. I know people are like, I'm cleansing the house of these evil spirits. I'm like, it's honestly pissing me off even more. So all of them are going into me or something. But it's like incense, calm and serene. When I smell it, I'm like, it smells like ass, and it's honestly not doing that effect to me at all.
Yeah, I like it in small amounts, but too much of it is too much. And
You don't want
if
to
you get too
sound like a
close to it,
hippie.
yeah, it's like I think it's very like overpowering if you're like not on the other side of the room or
It's
something.
it's overpowering for any environment. Like people that light them in their bathroom, I'm like, I have to really
How
take a shit, but I'm not going in there.
do you feel about scented candles?
I'm actually a fan. I'm staring at one right now that says berry and tobacco. I don't know how they do it. I don't, but every time I go to the candle store, it's like unicorn Febreze. I'm like, well, what the fuck does that smell like? And you smell it and you're like, oh, that's exactly what a
I
unicorn Febreze would smell like.
Yeah, I used to work at Bed Bath and Beyond, and part of the section I worked in was the candle section. So I was always like over there huffing them.
You see my face?
Yeah.
Did you meet Morty,
No.
the guy from Click, whatever his name was?
Oh man, that movie. That was always the joke. Like, what's in the Beyond section?
Is there a Beyond section?
Uh, Funnily enough, that's what they called the website for the store when I was there.
What? Or hold on a
Yeah,
second. You just got me very curious about something because I feel like we're just pulling up life facts that a lot of people aren't really too hip on from like the casinos and stuff. What I'm gonna Google this on my phone. What does CVS stand for? Because it actually has a really big fucking meaning to it. Because Prince, he used to buy all his prescriptions by himself. Like he wouldn't have somebody go get them to him. So you would just see Prince randomly walk into a CVS and get his prescriptions.
really. Is it like is it a German company where it stands for some long thing like BMW?
No, it stands for Consumer Value Stores.
Wow, I would not have gotten that.
It's apparently supposed to hold consumer value over any other company that rivals in the pharmacy industry. And somebody put the Urban Dictionary says crappy variety store, pharmacy chain that stocks health and beauty supplies, snacks, food, and they got some weird stuff in CVS. I'm like, there's literally everything. Like,
Hmm.
did your teeth fall out of your mouth? Well, they got dentures. It's like you got literally anything you can possibly think of. Who wants the beach towels? It's like we're not even at the beach. Doesn't matter. We got it.
Yeah, the one by my house has a whole huge section on as seen on TV products
Those
for
are fun.
problems that no one has.
Those are fun. I bought one of those non-burn pans, whatever you get, the non-stick ones.
Hmm.
Yeah, it does not work at all. I just made eggs before this podcast, and I can tell you right now that half my eggs stuck to the damn frying pan, where now my house smells like burnt eggs.
Oh, that's the worst. We got a set of like a couple pans and um a pot that were nonstick maybe weeks ago, and for the first, there was supposed to be like that copper ceramic nonstick,
Yeah.
uh, which may or may not be a similar material to what you're talking about, because that was the first time I'd ever seen it was on like an infomercial. But it really worked. It was amazing for the first like week, and then I don't know if the coating like comes off if you put it in the dishwasher, or maybe
Yeah.
we burned it off, and we're gonna have cancer now. I don't know, but
Freaking Teflon. I smell it, dude. Every time I cook on it, the thing went from copper to black. And like people are like, just throw it out. I'm like, this is gonna lead into my question. What is the best versus the worst Christmas gift you have ever received?
oh man, um, the
My
best.
worst is that freaking pan, dude. I still have it. I was not wanting it. I remember when I got it, this was probably like 2 years ago. I was like, they told us in school not to smoke out of copper tubing. And now you're giving me something made of copper. She's like, it's for your fucking eggs, you dummy. I'm like, well, it looks like a bong if I tried hard enough.
The best gift I ever got probably was, and maybe this was only the best because it was so novel to me being a very young child. Um, I remember I must have been like 4 or 5. This is one of my earliest memories. Was it was getting close to Christmas, and I was sitting in my room, and I was trying really hard to like write a list to Santa, but I didn't really know how to write yet. So I was like, I want a Superman action figure and a Spider-Man action figure, and I tried. I really just made like scribbles probably on the piece of paper I was writing on. But somehow, I don't know if my parents heard me, talking about this out loud to myself or what, but I got exactly what I wanted, which was like this bomb ass Superman action figure and a Spider-Man action figure. And I was like, wow, Santa, even though I know I'm not really writing anything because I was old enough to know that that wasn't really probably writing, I was like, somehow he figured this out.
Can you sue your parents for reading your mail if it wasn't addressed to them? It was addressed to Santa? Or doesn't that come into a loophole of like, but your parents are Santa? And then it's like, wow, I just screwed up a bunch of kids listening to this episode. Kids, it's not true. Don't listen to me.
Santa does get those letters at some point.
That's like,
Um,
I know people that keep them in like a box, like, and show them when they're older. I'm like, why? That's like, I would be like, you're getting sued. Like, you kept the evidence. You're supposed to burn it.
yeah, the technicality here is that it's a federal offense, at least in the US, for someone to read mail that you've received. But I don't think that it's illegal to read mail that you have not sent out yet. So if they intercept it before it goes to the post office, it's fair game.
Laws are so freaking weird. Like, did you know in the right of way, you know how you're supposed to pull over if an ambulance comes?
Yeah.
You know what you're supposed to do if a male person comes and there's like you're at a four-way stop, there's a male person, there's an ambulance. You let the male person go first because they're more important than the person dying in the ambulance because they work for the federal government. You're like, so our mail is more important than people's lives? It's like I gotta get that Amazon 2-day ship. I got a fork coming
Yeah.
in the box.
Jeff Bezos has entered this chat. I did not know that. That's an incredible fact.
I learned that shit in driving school. He's like, if you're at a four-way stop in an ambulance, a police officer and a male person is in the way, who do you give the right to first? Everybody's like, fucking ambulance. Somebody's dying. He goes, nope, it's the male person. You're like, what?
Who gets next right of way? Is it
It's definitely the ambulance. I don't think a cop cares.
pulls the ambulance over for running through the red light?
Excuse me, sir. We have somebody dying in the back. Yeah. I'm sorry that this is. Have you ever ridden an ambulance?
Not because I was sick. I've only been in an ambulance. Like earlier this year, my girlfriend got into a car accident.
Oh shit!
And she was sitting in the ambulance when I got there. But I've never. That's the only time I've ever been in one.
Did she die?
No, she was fine. Her car got pretty messed up, but it was like the meme of the old guy who can't see anything, just pulling out in front of you.
Oh yeah, that happens. That surprisingly happens a lot. It really goes back to what we were saying about death. Like everybody's really just kind of getting through it. It feels like there's these so many opportunities where we're like, we just made that opportunity. Like that could have easily went so freaking bad. Like when you're doing a Jenga tower and you pull the block and you're like, this could easily go completely sideways.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's and so what I wanted to get back to talking about, that we're back on death, was you said you had a panic attack about it a couple days ago or whatever. I've just had when I was 25 probably. I'm 28 now. I had this realization that I was not some infinite being and that my mortality was all but guaranteed. And really, it's something I've been struggling with for the last 3 years, is this existential crisis about trying to come to terms with the fact that I'll eventually die, and what does that mean?
So I got a big thing for you to hit on this. And I got humbled very young when that jet ski hit me. I was like, oh shit, I'm not invincible. I can die. And honestly, when I'm gone, I might not even be a speck of a thing that's going to even affect this universe. Not even fucking close. So then I started thinking of this. Is it better to be remembered by everyone for a second or remembered by few forever? About basically being remembered by your close friends, the loved ones, the people you do your podcast with, the people that care about you, want to talk to you every day, and honestly mean something. Or is it better to be famous and be in the spotlight for a minute and then gone in a second? It doesn't make any sense, but we're all chasing the fame because it's all about a thing over quality and quantity. We care more about the quantity than the quality of love.
Yeah, I think probably the more important one is to be remembered by those closest to you, because either way, really, in the scheme of things, we exist for not even the blink of an eye, and then we're gone. And who knows, in a million years what humanity will be like, but almost certainly nobody who's existed up until this point will be remembered, right?
I'll remember you. I'm serious.
Will you be living in a million years?
Yeah, the Neuralink came out, so I wouldn't get it. I'm going to be Amish as possible when it comes to most things. Like, this is the farthest I'll dive into technology. If it becomes something that starts going inside of us, I'm like, I've seen iRobot. It does not end well for anybody.
Yeah, I'm not opposed to the Neuralink, but I think I'm not going to be an early adopter of it.
You know what really scared the shit out of me is the fact that I saw RoboCop, and it was like when he woke up and they had all the parts of him all robotic. He's like, take it off, undo it. And they just start taking everything off, and you just see him with a head and the lungs is left. Like
Oh yeah.
that scares that would cause me to have a heart attack. I would be like, oh my God, I couldn't do this. Like if I got hit by a car, was in a coma, and like we could bring him back, but we got to replace some things. You know what the weirdest thing is? Scientists did a study a long time ago using male patients, for instance. When they wake up from a surgery or they wake up from something, the first thing that they would always check, can you guess what it was? This was before the age of cell phones.
Hmm. Uh, your penis.
Exactly. They checked their dick. That was the first thing because that means more to you. They did a study recently on this, and guess what people check now?
Your penis still.
No, it's your cell phone. Your cell
Oh.
phone is more important than your dick.
Oh man, I don't know. I'd at least me, I would be like, is everything good down there?
It's like
How we
that's
doing?
you always gotta like after you get into a traumatic incident or you have a traumatic experience, you always gotta check yourself and make sure nothing's like wrong. Like, is my arms okay? Are my legs okay? Is everything working all right? Same thing with the surgery. You check if everything's there. Are my kidneys still intact? That's the biggest fear for me is if I go into surgery and some dude's like, he's got 2 kidneys. He only needs one. Let's donate this on the black market. We won't say a damn word. I'm like, why do I have this scar right here? Like you kept moving. I was like, but I was knocked out. How was I moving? Like a marionette. They just tied ropes to me and started dragging me around the surgery room.
Mm-hmm.
He's got
It was just
appendicitis.
it's like when you hit your elbow or something with that little hammer and you have a reflex motion.
Bro, imagine if every time you hit your elbow, somebody died.
Do you get a pick who died or just
Hey, just a
is
random
it?
person. You're sitting there having coffee, you bang your elbow, dude across the street just conks out.
Man, I'd be a mass murderer then because I'm pretty clumsy and I'm smacking up on everything
I don't think I've ever
despite my
hit
best efforts.
I don't think I've ever really hit my elbow, but I've hit my funny bone, and I'm like, where's this bone? I have studied the physical anatomy, and I cannot find this fucking bone.
It's to go back to your RoboCop thing. I think I welcome transhumanism, even if I don't want to be an early adopter. I I think that the way our bodies are now and technology is just a stepping stone to something else, and
I agree with
I'm
you on the
interested to see what it is.
I agree with you on the fact of it would probably help out in a lot of everyday things, but I know people don't stop at just one. We tend to go a little bit too far. Next thing you know, you're more machine than man, and maybe if you had a limit, like if you like there was a amount of procedures you can do, you can only do two, so you have to pick like two really really good implants, and they can't affect your brain and they can't affect your appendages such as like your dick. They can affect your arm, but they can't affect like the two things that make you what you really are. Like people are like, well, your heart makes you no. A dick makes you more of a human than anything, I'm pretty sure. Or nether region of a woman.
Let me blow your mind here. I was listening to this podcast actually right before we got on here while I was walking my dog. Um, it's this AI researcher from MIT named Lex Friedman, and he was interviewing this guy who is like a neuroscientist, and they're talking about brain plasticity. It's called I think it's called the Lex Friedman podcast now. If you want to check it out, it's really good
Why?
long form science discussion.
I have to avoid that because he's named after a supervillain, Lex Luthor.
Well, he seems to have benevolent intentions.
That's what they all do. Castro was known to be a good guy. No, he wasn't.
Well, anyway, they were talking about the Neuralink, and then um, people who have cochlear implants or ocular implants,
Yeah.
and when you have a cochlear implant, I guess it's a little microphone with some diodes that attach to your
Yeah.
the inside of your ear, and you can learn how to hear with that. Um, and this guy he had on made this really interesting statement about how no matter what, he said, your limbs and your eyes and ears, they're really just uh, you know tools, right? But if you look at other animals, some of them have wings or forelegs, but we all basically have the same brains, right? They're structured a little differently sometimes, but all the cells are more or less the same across the animal kingdom. So your brain is just this thing that can take all of this sensory input, and it doesn't even matter now, right? If it's mechanical input from a computer chip, or if it's a biological input from a limb, and eventually just figures out how to use it. And so I just thought that was so profound because, like, it doesn't matter if we have what we look like now, right? Our brains are what really makes us human. So if we have robot bodies, we can learn to live in that paradigm, right? We don't necessarily need to be um, biological creatures.
This is fucking me up worse than Interstellar did. I was contemplating space for like 2 weeks on that one. I was like, imagine if there is this other reality or other plane of existence where you could literally get sucked through a black hole to the point where you could exist in reality, but no one could know you existed because you hit such a different level on such a like. It's like if you watch Ant-Man and he like keeps shrinking himself until he comes back into the world. I'm like, is that a fucking thing? Like, are we not paying attention to the fact that we're all just moving particles? Here comes the panic attack. Okay, see, when you really start diving down into that of all the molecular level of shit and all the complete, like, we don't even pay attention to a sunrise hardly anymore. So it's like, if you really start narrowing down to that, like, how into detail can you go? But you brought up a good point, though, in the beginning. You've been saying a lot of amazing things, but I'm saying in the beginning, you brought up the cell phone thing with the battery. Like we said, people learn from mistakes. Back in the day, people's phones would explode in their fucking ear from the battery overheating. I knew so many cases where a dude left his phone in his car, came out a couple hours later, grabbed it, started talking on it, and the thing exploded and blew off like half of his face. So I'm like, we learn from shit. So I'm like, maybe with all the implants, we're going to learn. Like, some dude's going to have a bionic hand. You ever see the dude with the bionic arm on YouTube? And it shows you how he can, like, do all these different poses, and the thing starts doing the jacking off thing, and it starts banging the
Yeah.
table, and he can't get it to stop. And I'm like, imagine that on your crotch. You're just going to rip the thing right off, and it's going to keep slapping you with it.
Yeah, but then you get a robo dick
You
that can
can't, dude.
withstand the extra.
Would you replace your dick?
I don't know.
It's yours.
I mean, in theory, if there was a better version of it,
But it's going to be like the
I'm not.
template model, so everyone's going to have the same dick as you. Like, there's
Yeah,
no,
but then
this is the Chuck Berry version of the, no, there's not going to be that fucking, I'm wearing Morgan Freeman's dick. No, there's none of that. It's just going to straight up be like, it's going to be a same blank template thing like an iPhone is. Like, everybody's going to have it.
yeah, but like, don't you think that people would have a dick tuning culture, like people tune cars or build computers and overclock them or whatever? People would be like overclocking their penis, where it's running, at some crazy frequency, and then they added a length attachment or something, or now it can tell you what the weather is. I don't know,
You
but
have to learn from that too. You know how many people be overclocking their dick to where it explodes on them?
yeah. Oh,
There's
probably
literally
every
been,
teenager.
see, people are just obsessed with advancement and trying to replace the original for something better. Like, there's a surgery you can do where you can get an implant in your dick. What they do is they take a metal rod, like an actual, there's different sizes, small, medium, large, and what it does is it just makes your dick that length. It like stretches it, but then you can't get hard or anything. But people have literally died from trying to make their dick bigger, trying to get the large implant, and it doesn't go through. I'm like, think of that though. You're more willing to risk to increase your dick size. Are you that like, is it that bad? Like, is it that, apparently, like, it's like girls don't, they care about the emotion and the person they're with. They like the intimate connection. But I mean, I guess if you're going after like Tinder girls or something, you end up like, oh, I got to do this.
Yeah. And also, I think that in that case, length is the wrong dimension, right? It's really, from what I understand about the width.
And you can't fit in the thing. It's like being in a tunnel and you're driving a semi. It's not going to work.
Yeah, it's quite the conundrum. Uh, I think, well, right now, where we're at, doesn't seem like it's wise to insert anything into your body unnecessarily, because you have to deal with rejection issues and our material science isn't in the right spot because things
Un-
will break down eventually.
Dude, you got me on a fun fact bonanza. So when people get shot, if there's no bullet shatter or there's no like the bullet like goes in a million pieces or doesn't break anything or doesn't get lodged in an organ, if it's just like straight through and gets stuck there, like it's in like a butt cheek or something, you know what they'll do? They'll actually leave the bullet in there because your body will naturally reject the foreign object.
Yeah, and it pushes it out, right, or something.
That's fucking nuts. So would we immediately reject our implants because it's a foreign object?
Yeah, well, that's the reason why I wouldn't try to do a Neuralink or something right now.
Dude, we're creating it right now. We're calling it that in like a month or two from now, there's gonna be people that are like sleeping and they're like, I woke up and the Neuralink was on my pillow and now I can't move my arms. It's like, bam, there you go.
Yeah, but then also, with that, they have to like cut a small portion of your skull out and then feed something into it, and so right, like your skull doesn't close back up, so you have this foreign object in there, and then also a hole, so you're more susceptible to infections. It just seems like that's not the right
You know
way
they
to go about
use a
it. And
freaking Dremel to cut open your skull.
yeah, it's just like and the little saws. So yeah, it's like something you see at Home Depot or something.
I'm so happy that like the medical industry has at least advanced from like the 19th century days. Like I got really heavily into like the fascination of 19th century Victorian surgery because my buddy was just interested in it. So I was just trying to get topics to shoot at him. And dude, the fact that like people always, like you were saying earlier about how you started going to the doctors, you started feeling better. It's because inherently in your mind, you know that you actually like the hospital is the worst really place to go. People think that's the place to go for an emergency, but it's like you're around sickness.
Hmm.
You're going to get sicker if you go to the hospital. That's why doctors used to make house calls because back in the day, hospitals were so fucking dirty, you would just get even more. You get like an infection if we chopped your leg off.
Yeah, you know what? I wonder now that we have COVID, um, maybe some of that will come back, right? That almost makes sense to if you can provide care by not going to the doctor's office around a bunch of sick people and have someone come to you, or like telemedicine is really popular now.
Doctors would start
Uh,
making house calls, but I don't think that would happen because of the factor of Me Too. You know how easy it would be if a doctor came to your house, checked on you appointment wise, then left, and you're just like, he raped me. Like, how do you know? We don't have cameras at your house. We can't tell if he did something wrong or
yeah, that's really unfortunate, but I'm optimistic, and I don't think that um, I feel like
people aren't that bad.
no,
There's somebody
I
out there
think because
listening
there's lots
like,
of
this
people
is a
who
great idea.
yeah, there's lots of people who are that bad, and undoubtedly sometimes that actually would happen, right? They're bad doctors too, of course,
I've
but
had one. He tried to get me into porn at one point.
what? Oh, that I feel like that's a necessary side tangent to go down.
He is also arrested, so don't want to bring back that emotional trauma.
Okay, then we'll let that one rest. But it seems like people nowadays, I feel like the Me Too movement is because of a series of behaviors that was really popular, or more accepted over the last several decades. But it seems like, you know, everybody I meet now, there's basically nobody who's overtly racist or sexist. Um, and so I feel like the trend of culture will be such that, we won't have big, you know, rape scandals or something
I can
as
tell you
much.
one that's happening right now, and he's the reason why I can't get him on my podcast. I've been emailing this guy. We've been chatting. He said come back to him in like a month. And guess what? Now he's getting arrested. Ron Jeremy is getting Me Too'd right now. And I'm so fucking pissed about it because I had so many questions about the porn industry for that man. I'm like, hey,
Oh man.
what was your first scene? Like, this is a good question. What is one celebrity or one person in the world that you would want to ask questions to? Who would you, if you had to choose one person? I already know it. For me, it's not Ron Jeremy. It would be Leonardo da Vinci. I had so many questions for that guy.
Oh, okay. So living or dead?
Mhm.
Um, Man,
Do living
probably.
first. Living's easier, and then
Okay,
dead.
so living. Um,
Trump.
nah, I don't. I feel like
Biden.
you know.
How is you want to play a game of checkers? Try beating Biden. If you lose to Biden in a game of checkers, there's something fucking wrong with you.
Yeah. Well, I don't want. I don't want to get crazy political, but it seems to me like it would be fruitless to talk to either of them because politics, give you a huge incentive to lie or misrepresent yourself.
It's just
So,
like the internet. People always try and act different than they do. That's why I'm like, I got to
mhm.
do this. So, like, I just got to be me, because if I try to be like, you're listening to the radio, like, if I try to do something like that, I'm like, then if I'm not authentic with you, and you would suss it out in like an hour, people that do like a 5-minute podcast or like a 10-minute podcast, they try way too hard to be like a million different fortune cookie quotes in a matter of 5 minutes, where you're just like, this person isn't anything like that.
Yeah. Okay, so if anybody who's alive, I think I'd probably want to talk to um like Elon Musk because he just seems to have a really interesting perspective about the world and like what humans are capable of. And I think it's very refreshing and not a lot of people, at least a lot of public figures think like he does. If it was somebody who's dead, probably the mathematician Leonard Euler. I don't know if you know anything about him, but he's the guy who figured out um, have you ever seen, the something 10 to the you know letter
Fifth
E
power, 10 to the
and then
fifth.
to some power?
Yeah.
Yeah. So he was the one that actually calculated that compounding number E. Um,
So that's
but
the guy I
he
want to
has
beat
like
the shit out of. That dude really messed me up in math class. Holy shit. Oh my God. When they started adding a number on top of a number, I'm like, wait a minute, hold on. I just got fractions. What are you doing to me?
But what else did he do? He made a lot of contributions to like calculus, and um, he he's one of the most well-written mathematicians as far as like volume of work done. And I just think that he would be somebody really interesting to talk to that would have a interesting perspective on, I mean, not just math but life.
If you could
Right?
have one
Someone like that seems to
secret
see
exposed,
things differently.
if you could have one secret exposed to you out of anything in the world, what would it be?
Oh, probably how does the government know about extraterrestrial life? Like, what's going on with that?
They already admitted they've known about it and they've seen it, but everybody's been too worried about the
Yeah,
virus to care.
I saw that, and I was really surprised that it didn't make more headlines than it did,
I just want to know
or
if
was it
Walt
talked about
Disney's
more?
frozen. That's all I want to know. Is he actually frozen somewhere, or is that just a lie?
Probably he's probably under one of the Disney parks or something.
He's under Mickey
Those
Mouse's
places have like,
playhouse.
yeah, those places have massive underground like tunnel systems, so you can get everywhere without walking through the park if you're an employee.
I need to get somebody from Disney on my podcast. I've been trying so hard, but they never want to talk about Disney unless it's in a really good way. I'm like, why does nobody ever die in Disney? Like, nobody dies, because what they do is, if you get your head taken off in the park, the paramedics take you outside of the park and pronounce you dead. That's how nobody dies in Disney.
Yep.
That's sick shit. That is like sadistic. That is like, and I love your shirt, Rocco. Oh my God.
Oh, thanks.
I saw
I
the
found
ears,
this
but I
at
didn't want to call it out and then be like, oh, that's not Rocco.
yeah, no, it's Rocco and his dog, whose name I'm blanking on right now.
Welcome to Out
Um,
of the Blank. I'm
I don't know
blanking
if they
on it
have
too.
these stores. I don't know if they have these stores by you, but they have these like dollar stores here called Five Below.
Yes.
Um, and I found this shirt there,
No freaking
and it
way.
was $5.
I need to go to my Five Below and see what they
Yeah,
got. I have a Punisher shirt from there, and I have a Star Wars shirt from there, and then I bought a poster from there. I'm like, holy shit! I have all the Star Wars people on one poster. I'm like, this is actually, and my phone
have
screen's from there. The one that doesn't break, it just when it cracks, you can just peel it off.
Oh, really? I've never been there before, and I was really sleeping on that place, man. They have all the good candy,
Hmm.
cool T-shirts, like little toys. If I was a kid, that would be the jam.
What would you consider the best candy? Because I think their Big League Chew selection is pretty on point.
Hmm. Um, I don't think I've only had the original Big League Chew, so I can't speak about that. One candy they had though that I didn't even think they made anymore, and I was super psyched to see was the Reese's Fast Break, which is like a Reese's peanut butter cup but in candy bar form.
Oh shit! I've
It's
seen that
got
in
like
Walmart, but I
the
haven't seen that at Five Below.
yeah, I hadn't seen them for years, and I just assumed they were discontinued. But that was like one of my favorite candies because it's got the chocolate and the peanut butter, but it also is like got this nice nougat underneath that's just really chewy and peak Reese's experience in my opinion.
Wow, dude! I started really thinking because they brought back Surge. They had drinks of Surge there. I was like, wow, this was way back in the '90s.
Surge?
Surge.
Would was it like an energy drink or?
It's like a Coke. It was like in a Mountain Dew bottle, but it said Surge, or was that? Yeah, it was Surge. Made me think of
Hmm.
Splurm or whatever from that's basically what Splurm was off of Futurama. The little drink that they had was Splurm's Mackenzie. That's what Surge was. It was that supposed to be a parody of that.
Oh, interesting. Actually, maybe this will sound incredible, but I've not watched very much Futurama ever.
You would love
All
that
my friends
show.
are super into it, but yeah, I really missed the boat on that one.
That's kind of like me in
Although,
South Park. I'll
um,
never watch South Park.
I've been thinking about South Park lately, and that I should go back and watch it because I remember I was a kid, that was like when it was peak popularity, and I would always feel so badass just like watching it late at night when I was supposed to be in bed before school, and I just thought it was like the funniest thing because it was kind of raunchy, and I was like 10.
That show gave me way too like got me into way too much trouble. I always tried to say something they said in the show in school or something. Next thing you know, I was in detention. Like you
Yeah,
can't
me
call
too.
the teacher Uncle
Although
Fucker. I'm like, I didn't know.
uh, yeah. Um, what have you been watching lately?
Honestly,
Anything
just the
good?
same Netflix stuff I've seen probably 1,000 times. I try not to. I just started watching The Office because I heard it was so good. I liked it, but I'm really into like stuff I can just tune in for background noise because I'm usually just doing something. Like I don't know. Like if I'm organizing my room, if I'm laying down, or if I'm just like writing something. Uh, but no, seriously, Sticks and Stones by Dave Chappelle is probably one of my favorite things to just keep re-listening to because it's just so funny how like you pick up something new every single time. Like you ever watch a movie and then you catch something like holy shit.
Yeah, that happens to me when I listen to music a lot. Especially if I'm listening to something like really good hip hop, and then I'll have listened to the song 50 times, and I'll like pick out some little new pun or something I didn't catch before, and I'm like, man, that's so good.
So you
It's
want
just
to know
layers and
you
layers in
you want to
here.
know a really good song that you got to look up that I bet will blow your mind when you listen to the lyrics of it?
Definitely.
An acoustic version of Outkast's Hey Ya.
By who?
It's Outkast.
Because I've
Hey Ya.
definitely heard at least one acoustic. Oh, or they did their own acoustic version of it,
No, you got to hear just look up
or is it a
acoustic.
cover?
There's like it's like the most popular one on YouTube. Some dude acoustically did it. I don't know his name. Sadly, I can't give him a shout out.
Okay, it's possible I've seen it, but
It's fucking deep, dude. It's about two people like losing like a bunch of stuff and like getting separated and losing love and then like heroin and all this. And you're like, I did not get that from all right, all right, all right, all right, all right, all right, over and over again.
hmm that's the sign of a good song, right? Is that when you can do it in different genres of music and it's still good
Yeah, like Jimi
when it's
Hendrix.
versatile like that.
Jimi Hendrix took All Along the Watchtower, and that's from somebody else.
hmm Who did it first? Was it Dylan,
I don't know who did it
or was it
first.
someone even before him?
This is not a fact check podcast. I might as well fact check that because that's important information. Some person out there is probably screaming at me like, "What the fuck?"
Because like the first 2 or 3 Zeppelin albums, those were all basically ripped off from blues artists, right?
Was it Purple Haze or was it All Along the Watchtower? Oh, it was
I know
Bob
Dylan
Dylan.
did All Along the
Bob Dylan
Watchtower.
did it.
Yeah, but I wasn't sure if he wrote it or if it was even because he lifted some songs from other folk or blues artists too, right? There's a big
Everybody takes shit and
culture of
then
that in the
turns it
60s.
into their own. Who cares? If it sounds better, it sounds better.
Mm-hmm.
Just give the person credit. If I take somebody's
Oh, right.
information, I try my hardest to give a shout out to them.
Yeah, me too. I definitely don't think there's anything intrinsically wrong with imitation. And I think that's why I like hip hop so much is people taking a sample of some song and flipping it into something totally different and unexpected. I think that's so cool.
That's kind of, I like techno for that reason, like some Skrillex or something where you start hearing like, yes, oh my God. And then it's like, and you're like, holy shit, my ears are, I need ear implants.
Yeah. So, what kind of music is your favorite then?
I am the son of 2 DJs, so I listen to everything under the sun, but mostly I just listen to podcasts. I feel like sometimes, like right now, like I'm on a song kick, I would say. It would have to be like Post Malone's Sunflower is really good. Like it's just something that hits on like a deep level.
Yeah, that's an earworm for sure.
What would you say your
Although I gotta
song?
say hmm um lately I've been listening to a lot of this Canadian electro band called Purity Ring. They just released a new album. I guess it was a few months ago, but I've been kind of bumping it all summer. I was actually supposed to see them live in Chicago in May, but then coronavirus happened and all their tours got canceled. So it's kind of disappointing.
Hmm.
What else have I been listening to? I kind of jump around a lot. My buddy Larry, who is one of the other hosts of our OK So podcast, he's real into metal music. He got me into metal and this like style of prog metal called gent, which is sort of incorporates a lot of like electro stuff and a lot of jazz into it. And then I really like folk music, like Bon Iver, Iron and Wine. I don't know if you've ever listened to them.
She'll be coming round the mountain when she comes.
So I don't know. I'm sort of all over the place with that.
I think it's pretty good to stay up to date on a lot of things, especially when it comes to music, movies, life events. I mean, even if you don't, like all the new stuff that's coming out, it's still at least good to listen to it or hear a little bit of it and decide on your own. I feel like too many people read a review about something before they listen to it. I'm like, well, you're missing out.
Yeah, I actually try not to watch reviews about things before I listen to them or watch them because I don't want to be biased by what I've just read.
Yeah.
Unless
Amazon
it's something I'm
reviews will
gonna
do
buy,
that
like
too.
yeah. Well, yeah, I think that's a little different because if you're trying to buy a new phone or like a part for your computer or something, you want to know if people have had problems with it or.
We're predicting the future. People are going to be selling used Neuralinks. Like, I don't want that. That was in your fucking brain.
That was last year's model. The next model has 45% more processing power.
Oh my God. If they make it like iPhones where it's like detachable and you can plug something else in, like an Airwick into an electrical outlet, like plug it in there, like, oh, I want a new set today. Oh God.
The thing that scares me the most probably is that, it'll be like when you buy a new cell phone now and then it has Facebook or something pre-installed on it and you can't uninstall it and you're going to have a bunch of like crapware on your Neuralink. It's going to
There's
be like,
so
no,
much
I don't want to see
porn.
yellow. That's fine, but man, I don't want to see any more yellow page recommendations, please.
I would love if the directories came back on the doorstep. That would be awesome.
Did you use those a lot? I feel like.
I like to rip them a lot. You just come home after a long
Yeah,
day
well,
at
that's
school and
pretty
then try and rip the thing in half, and then you would just keep working on it
good.
slowly and slowly.
Yeah. Did you ever do it?
After like a week of doing
I
it
think I
all to the
managed to rip
same
a
phone
small
book,
one once.
like a small managed one, yeah. It's like life; it can't be too big.
Um, yeah. Okay, so I had another question for you. Sorry, I
I
hope this
no,
isn't turning into like me interviewing you.
well, this is a conversation. Like I said, this isn't an interview. I knew you had a few questions for me because of the look of your face. You're like, you're 22, right? I was like, oh, he's got some shit to say to me.
Well, it just seemed like your because I had just went through, the existential crisis that you kind of touched on. I'm like, man, maybe that's an interesting thing to talk about if he's going to imminently experience that, and maybe people don't, all experience that. I don't know. I feel like lots of people just ignore their own mortality or whatever.
Yeah, I know I'm
Um,
gonna die pretty soon. I'm
but
okay with it.
what I was really wondering about is like what I try to ask all the guests who come on. Okay, so or try to distill it down into like what makes you really tick, like what really consumes your brain and is something you're just constantly thinking about.
Oh, well, like what am I always thinking about, or what pisses me off?
Um, I mean, it could be what pisses you off, but I what I mean, that's the question maybe more constructive way. Like, um, you know, this podcast you do is pretty cool because you're out here like every day recording a new one, right?
Hmm.
Or releasing a new one. Um, and that's just got to be a huge amount of time you're putting into it, and you have to be like passionate about it, right? But besides that, are there any things that you're really like deeply invested in? Maybe that's a better way to put it.
Um, I guess the gym. I've been doing that every day for 8 years, so I spend an hour, 2 hours there. Like I,
Nice.
I get off work probably pretty early, but I work at a gym, so then I just go right in for a workout. I don't know. You need forms of therapy, and I feel like if I don't have like the gym is a fix for me. So it's like if I can't just not do it. I can't function if I don't start my day with that. Like I'm at work the whole time. Like when do I get off? When do I get off? I want to go to work. I want to go work out. I want to go work out. Then afterwards, you just feel so much
Oh
better.
yeah.
Like I can actually process the day.
Yeah, I feel the same way. If I don't get that workout in first thing, I just like screws up the rest of my flow.
You gotta. I
Um,
think
what kind of
everybody has a form of like meditation that way.
yeah? Are you a big weightlifter or
I
what do you
tr-
like to do?
I don't like to like be like the super strongest in the gym, like trying to bench 3 plates, but I just like doing it like, 6 pack, trying, just looking good, I guess you would say. I'm not like extremely ripped or anything like, oh Hogan, no, but like I I just enjoy the release you get from it, when you're working out and all those hormones and endorphins start rising. You're like, yeah, it feels good. It's like heroin.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I started off as a distance runner, and then I got into weightlifting, and now I feel like I've been a little bit derailed since COVID-19 happened, and my gym was shut down for like 2 months. So me and Josh, who you had on earlier this week, I think, we lifted his little makeshift gym in his basement. He filled like 2 buckets full of concrete and nailed some 2x4s together to make like a squat rack, but it's like a little bit too tall for us and pretty rickety. So that was awesome.
That's a great
Uh,
takeaway. You do what you do for what you love.
mm-hmm. Yeah, that is good. If you
Bam.
really love something, you just nothing can get in your way, right?
And the
You got to
worst
just
the worst way to
always be out there
die
doing it.
would be getting a pencil in the ear.
Ooh, that would be yeah, that would be pretty bad.
Was this podcast everything you hoped for, Glenn?
Yeah, I think so. I had a really good time, and I hope I can come on again, or you can come on our podcast. I
For
think that'd be
sure.
awesome.
Please plug the podcast, man. I know Josh did a little bit. Plug the rest of it. Well, plug all of it.
Okay, so we're a podcast called Okay So. We talk about, well, it started out as us talking about formative events in our lives, and now we've evolved a little bit into having regular guests on, and talking to them about things that make them tick and what they like to do. And really, this podcast is just like a love letter to mine and Josh and Larry's friendship. We started doing it because we wanted to hang out more, and it's turned into something that maybe could be wide reaching, and I just think that's so cool. And I would encourage anybody who hears this podcast to check it out. You can find us at oksopodcast.com, or we're on Spotify, Stitcher, Apple, iTunes, Google Play, basically any podcast syndicator you have, you can probably find us. So, yeah.
Well, there's nothing better than a good old story.